Another one. Another one. Touchdown Jags! Ball game!
Another Jags podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to another Jags podcast, episode 55. We are back from our hiatus. We took 1 week off, which for us feels like a really long time. I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready. I'm ready to get back in it.
Oh, yeah. So much happened.
So much has happened. I know on a week where we didn't think much would, the NFL just never stops. We're here with Joey, Jason, and myself, James, to bring you another episode of all sorts of good stuff to talk about, mainly the quarterback position for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That is going to be, till either March or late April. That's what we're going to be talking about. And then after a decision is made, we'll talk about that even more. So buckle up and get ready. We're going to get to Twitter questions tonight, though. We put it out there for y'all to send us some questions, and you did so. Before we get to that, though, we want to remind everyone that we are on Twitter at Another Jags Pod. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Another Jags Podcast, and we are also on YouTube. Search us. You can also find us on YouTube. Search Another Jags Podcast, and we're right there. And listen, we include our listeners in the show, and that's what we're doing again tonight. So we're going to get right to it and just kind of talk about what you all want us to talk about. So, Jason, why don't you take it away? What is our first question from Twitter tonight?
All right, so shout out to Mikey Aziggy. He got the most play on his question, so we're going to start with his because this is a show of the fans, and we want the fans to kind of dictate.
Do we have fans?
On Twitter, we do.
Okay. Are they our fans or Jaguar fans? Or
they're Mikey Aziggy fans, that's for sure.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
Fans is more than one, so I think we're good. We've got at least two or three.
Okay, that works.
All right, so this question is from Mikey Yazigi, and he's at Mike_Yazigi94. And he says, am I the only one that thinks wide receiver is a need? You have Westbrook and Lee, who's coming off an injury. We're not sure he will be back 100%. And you have Chark, but I doubt they would make him number 2 if Lee isn't 100%. Not much solid depth at the position.
Of course it's a need. I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think those three could be a legitimate starting three if we have a good line and a good quarterback. But you got to have some depth, if anything. I mean, there's no way start to finish those three are going to make it through an entire season, first of all. I mean, they're going to be hurt. They're going to go out, get banged up. Just talking about those three, because that's what we have. I mean, Dede showed out into the first year. I mean, he really got better. I think he is a legitimate 2. We don't have a 1 for sure. I mean, I think Chark could maybe come into that role, and Lee possibly as well. I mean, Lee's progress as far as being hurt, I mean, he's been pretty quiet, but all signs are pointing to him being back 100%. I mean, there's nothing saying that he's behind schedule, nothing saying that he hasn't showed up for his treatments. I mean, he's apparently been to every single one of them, done exactly what he's supposed to, and on schedule. He's just not pushing it now because there's no reason for it.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, this wide receiver group was, I mean, can we say they were the worst in the league this past season? I mean, is that too much of a stretch?
Not at all.
I don't think so.
I think they were.
Yeah, I think right now, if you're not concerned with the wide receivers for the Jaguars, then there's something wrong with you. So to answer this question, no, Mike, you are not the only one. I would say most people, if they're paying any attention at all, should be very concerned with the wide receiver group for the Jags going forward. Joey's right. You know, we'd have no 1. I think Dede would benefit immensely if we did have a 1. I think you'd really see him flourish in a big, big way if he was not the feature guy. I think he could really come into his own if we had a true number 1 receiver. We don't. You know, Marquise Lee, even when healthy, I don't know if you would classify him as the prototypical number 1 receiver, at least not by NFL standards. He might be number 1 on the Jags depth chart, but you never know what you're going to get coming off, an injury like he had. So we'll see. I think saying that Chark could be a number 1 is a bit of a stretch right now. I think we'd all agree that we need to see more from him going forward before we can declare him a number 1 guy. He's got the size and the potential, but he's got a long way to go. So, Jason, you've said a few times that if they address quarterback and free agency, then you'd like to see the number 1 pick be a wide receiver, right?
Absolutely. I was going to ask you, is it a big enough need for you to think the Jags would draft a receiver in the first round?
Not with the 7th overall pick, and if they get Nick Foles, then yes. If they do not, no. They have to go quarterback with the 7th overall pick if they do not get Nick Foles in free agency. Now, if they can trade into the first round from their 2nd round pick, then I'd say absolutely go for it, depending on who's on the board. But it's a huge need. I mean, we need to make that very clear. It is a huge Need.
You're absolutely huge need. Huge. Trump's words there. I mean, it is, but I think that's a need that can be addressed in the second or third round. If you're smart drafting, we have to go quarterback. If we don't get one in free agency, we have to go offensive line in my mind, or maybe even tight end before we go wide receiver. I think you can find wide receivers that can flourish in the later rounds.
And here's the problem with wide receiver this year. There's really nothing available. I mean, you look at the draft, you have A.J. Brown as the top prospect right now, wide receiver at Ole Miss, 6'1", 225. Then you have DK Metcalf, who, did anyone see the picture of him that came out today? Holy crap, dude. He looks like a bodybuilder. Like, he looks like, it's insane. Like, it is the most unbelievable picture.
Is it with is his shirt off and there's two guys behind him? That's him?
Yes.
I thought that was Leon Jacobs.
No, they put a picture of Leon Jacobs next to him to show how small Leon Jacobs looked.
Oh my gosh.
Next to him.
He's a wide receiver?
Jacobs joked.
Jacobs looked small.
Yeah, I know.
Jacobs looked small next to DK Metcalf.
Who did he play for in college?
Ole Miss. So Ole Miss had some stud wide receivers. Okay.
So they has some stud strength and conditioning coaches too.
So Paris Campbell and Marquise Brown, I mean, they're the next rated receivers. But Deebo Samuel, I'm a big Deebo Samuel fan. I think he's going to be a good player. I watched him a lot in college, and he's small, 6'2", 208, but he's an electric player. So I'd love to see him in the second round. But here's the problem with drafting in the second round. Like Joey was saying, is you're going to get a guy like Chark, and we're going to be in this perpetual loop of guys like DJ Chark, D.D. Westbrook, Marquise Lee, all coming in, and they're just a late round guys. And that's what you get when you draft guys in the second and third round, unfortunately. So there's no free agents really out there. Golden Tate is like the one guy that's out there that you could go get, and he'd be kind of expensive. So you're not really realistically going to be able to get Golden Tate and a quarterback in free agency unless it's like a Teddy Bridgewater or someone like mid-level like that. But
Isn't Golden Tate Jalen Ramsey's brother-in-law?
Yes.
No, I think Jalen Ramsey dates Golden Tate's sister.
Yeah, they're not married, so technically he's not brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she was like a collegiate sprinter.
Right.
And he's a...
I mean,
it's just in the family.
Buy stock in their daughter right now. I don't know. I don't know why I threw that out there. It just made me think of it. I'm still freaking out that Metcalf is that big.
Yeah,
I saw the picture and I thought that must be Leon Jacobs. They said something about him and he's just huge.
Yeah, he's a monster.
I mean, he looks like a gladiator.
He really does. Like an MMA heavyweight. That's crazy.
Yeah. So
you gotta throw that up on Twitter because that picture's insane.
Yeah. So that's the problem with wide receiver. I agree. It is a need. I just don't think you can address it this year. So I think you may have to go into the year with what you have.
Which is very problematic when we have such a huge question mark at quarterback. When you don't have any weapons to throw to. Because not only do we not have a true number one wide receiver, we don't have a true number one or number two pass-catching tight end. So, it's tough sledding for whoever's going to be quarterback going forward.
I'll throw some names at you. Tell me if any of them do anything for you. Martavis Bryant, Adam Humphries, Cole Beasley, Chris Hogan, Mike Wallace, Cordero Patterson, Jermaine Kearse.
I mean, Martavis Bryant would if he could keep his head on straight.
He didn't do anything for me. If you get cut by the Raiders,
Yeah. I mean, I'm grasping at straws here.
There's just nothing out there. I mean, it really is. I'm scouring this free agency list. Nothing, man.
No. Be interesting to see what they do. I'm sure they're going to draft a wide receiver somewhere. We'll see. Maybe they're just thinking they can get lucky. I mean, who knows?
Well, and that's kind of the reason I bring up tight end, because again, the tight end role is taking over the NFL. I mean, look at all the good teams; they all have a stud receiving tight end for the most part, and this draft does seem to be kind of loaded with them compared to wide receivers. Jason, did you happen to look at the fact that the number 1 and 3 prospect for tight end are out of Iowa?
I did see that.
How's that possible?
We talked about that on our last podcast.
Yeah, I don't really pay attention to that much.
Noah Fant and one of them's like a
Hawkinson.
One of them's like kind of a dual threat, and the other one's more of like a run blocker. And Zach Goodall actually talked about with our interview 2 weeks ago that he liked The other guy, not Noah Fant. What's the other guy's name?
Hawkinson.
Yeah. Goodall's a Hawkinson fan because
Yeah,
he thinks he has the ability to move into a pass-catching role.
Yeah, TJ Hawkinson, 6'5", 250, runs like a 4.6.
But I think he has had like 10 catches his whole
He
career.
had 7 touchdowns last season.
Oh, well, I'm obviously totally off base.
Yeah, 49 receptions. And,
Ooh.
6 touchdowns last year.
Okay. All right.
So,
Maybe I'm thinking of Font. Maybe Font is the guy that doesn't have a lot of receptions, but he's rated higher on people's draft boards for some reason.
I think we kind of got to go that route over wide receiver to start with. Because you're right. There's just nobody that jumps out at you.
I don't know. I've heard a lot of good things about Metcalf. I mean,
Yeah, me too.
So,
He
but
probably got paid to go to school there.
I'm sure he did. Why else would you go to Ole Miss?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. It's gonna. I mean, I still am with Jason here about O'Shaughnessy though. I think he's can continue to develop given the chance. So if they resign him, which I think they have to. I mean, at this point, I think they have to resign O'Shaughnessy. They're still, the jury's still out about Safarian Jenkins. Does he come back? It looks like the writing's on the wall for that. So you're talking about 2 glaring needs right off the bat. And we still don't know who's going to be throwing to him. And I think until that question is answered, it's going to be hard to say what the Jags do with any of their picks, especially the first one.
I guess that would be a good question to start with because it's kind of going to go into the draft strategy. What would you guys rank need, let's say 1 to 3? Obviously, quarterback's going to be number 1.
Right.
Well, unless you sign Foles.
Well, but you're still addressing that first. So maybe
Okay,
not.
so
Just
not
overall 1
okay.
to 3. What do we have to address?
Quarterback 1. Best available player after that between wide receiver and offensive lineman. Fills out 2 and 3 to me. I know that's not what you're asking, but
No,
No, it's true. I think that's what they're going to do is go best available player, which I still think it's not out of the realm of possibilities that they go defense.
see, I disagree. I think the fact that we need to address quarterback for sure, we need to address wide receiver, tight end, and offensive line for sure somehow. I think they're going to be drafting for need, not best available.
Well, let's say they get rid of 2 interior defensive linemen and let them go to make room for Foles or whomever. Suddenly that becomes a need now. And this is a heavy defense draft. That's where the top talent is in this draft. So do they bypass a guy that is light years better or at least perceived to be better coming out of college to get a need? Or do they just get the guy that is the best and will be the best NFL player? Because to me, it seems like the teams that draft the best players are the ones that have the sustained success. The teams that let those players go by because they have a specific need and get a lesser player to fill a spot seem to be the teams that are always in trouble.
Yeah, I would agree with that 5 years ago, but now it seems like the teams that are the best outside the Patriots draft the best offensive players and go from there. And we don't have that. We're already behind the curve on that. If we're going to try to adjust and fix that and keep up with the Joneses, as they say, we have to. So I think they're going to go what we need, not versus best available.
I think if they go Foles in free agency, if they get Foles in free agency, it wouldn't surprise me if they drafted a defensive player with the 7th overall pick. But I'll say this. As we get closer and closer to the offseason really cranking up, it seems to me, I don't think we're getting Foles. I don't know what it is, but I just don't see it happening. I don't think they want to spend that much money on him when there's so many other things they could spend that money on.
I really don't think they are either, but if I'm Foles and I'm picking between us and maybe 2 other teams, I sure as heck am saying, hey, I'm coming here, but you guys are drafting offense with a 7th round pick. I need some help.
Can he make that demand?
Absolutely. He can work it in there, and then you can really go, back on that. They could, but he could definitely put that out there.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't call it a hunch or whatever, but I don't think it's happening. Can I throw a question out to you guys? And I'm gonna specifically ask it to Jason because it's kind of his boy.
Yeah, let's do it.
Ryan Tannehill. What do you think?
There's a question about Ryan Tannehill.
Oh, is
from
there?
our Twitter listeners. So
Okay.
why don't I ask that?
All right.
And then that'll be a perfect segue. And this question is from Brad Harvin, and he's at the rundown_BH. and I was not expecting to get to Tannehill this early in the show.
Things
So
happen.
I'm excited. And he says, any thoughts on them saving a ton of cash and using Tannehill as a bridge quarterback and using money elsewhere? He says you could still trade up for Haskins if you do that.
I don't know about the trade up for Haskins part of that, but I would have no problem with us getting Tannehill. I mean, I think he could be more than just a bridge quarterback if he stays healthy in the right scheme.
It's funny how things change over time, you know? Because we had this conversation like a couple months ago, and you were just slaughtering Ryan Tannehill.
Back when Bortles was still a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough out here for Ryan Tannehill. And now
I'm not sure I remember
would
that.
love to have Tannehill on the team. All right, I see how it is.
With our options right now, I would take Tannehill over Teddy B like 9 times out of 10. He wasn't available when we were talking about quarterbacks before. I would think that'd be a good option.
What if I told you in Tannehill's career, he's had 123 touchdowns and 75 interceptions? What if I told you that Tannehill, as a starter, is 42 and 46? What if I told you
For a terrible Dolphins team,
he's
by the way.
thrown for 20,000 yards since 2012? What if I told you that I'm not a fan of Ryan Tannehill anymore, only because he's getting kind of old? He's going to be 31 this year.
Is he really?
Yeah.
31?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, he's been in the league since 2012, so I mean, it's
Wow.
I like Tannehill. He's always been underrated in my opinion, but I think if we're going to go the route of free agency,
I can't believe he's 31. That's surprising.
I would almost rather have Teddy Bridgewater at this point.
I would.
Yeah, but I'm not far off. I mean, I'm not far off on Tannehill. I mean, there's worse things. There would be worse things. And I'm not sure what Tannehill's contract looks like. I don't know if he would be as cheap as people think.
Well, if they cut him, I mean, another team wouldn't assume that contract, would they?
He signed a 4-year extension in 2015. 2017 guaranteed salary, $3.5 million, 5.5 million guaranteed 2018. He restructured last year in March. The Jags would be on the hook for $13 million this year for Ryan Tannehill.
But that's if they traded him, right? I mean, if he gets cut, they wouldn't take that on, would they?
Well, so there's $13 million of dead money, and he's got a $26 million contract.
I don't know. Maybe they would.
I don't know.
I mean, either way, worst case scenario, 13 mil. I mean, I think that's a bargain for a quarterback of that caliber if that's what we're doing, is just trying to plug somebody in for next year.
I think you can get Bridgewater much cheaper than that on a prove-it deal for 2 years.
I hope we take Bridgewater at this point, just so I can be right. Dude, he's going to get broken in half 3 games in.
So you want him to get broken in half so you can be right?
Absolutely.
Gosh, so self-centered.
Sorry, Teddy B.
He's going to be writhing in pain on the field, and Joey's going to stand up and say, I told you so.
Start high-fiving everybody around me.
Yeah. Well, let's get to our boy Jason Rat's question about Teddy B then. And he's at RatHCP. He says, if the Saints let Teddy B walk, we should 100% pursue him. Spend a year learning with Breeze. He's going to be way cheaper than a Foles and still have a chance to be a franchise quarterback. If he doesn't work out with the draft at quarterback next year when the class is better, convince me this is a bad move.
I think it's a good move, except the draft quarterback in 2020. I think if you get Bridgewater, you still draft a quarterback because he is such an unknown commodity. We have no idea if he's going to hold up physically or not. I believe in his skill set, but we just don't know. I mean, that's a gruesome injury, and we haven't seen him play not just a full season, but 2 or 3 game stretch. So there's just a lot of question marks there. Worst case scenario, you sign him to a 2-year deal, 3-year deal, draft a young quarterback with 7th overall, let that young quarterback develop, and then trade Bridgewater in 2020 and get a pick for him, get a player for him. So all is not lost, but I would be happy with them getting Bridgewater and staying away from Foles. I think it'd be a good move, a smart move. And who knows? They might just do that.
Well, there's 2 issues that I have that I think will convince you, Rat, about this being a bad idea. The first one being, since December of 2015, your boy Teddy B has thrown for 118 yards. Since December of 2015. it's hard to put all of your eggs in that basket with that stat line. I understand he's played in the preseason, things like that, but the bottom line is real bullets, 118 yards in over 4 years.
You want to talk about flip-flopping, man. You've been like the Teddy Bridgewater fan club for the past 3 weeks.
You just don't listen to me at all, Joey. That's what
I can only listen to so much of that before I have to cut it off.
Here's the second thing about Teddy Bridgewater. This is the first part of your question. You say, if the Saints let Teddy B walk. If you're Teddy Bridgewater and the Saints are offering you $3 or $4 million and the Jags are offering you $6 million, would you really want to leave the Saints?
Yeah, that's probably good. That's a good point.
Like,
probably not.
And like, we assume that like Teddy Bridgewater wants to be a starter for the Jags over being a backup for the Saints, but is that true?
I don't know.
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either.
Life is good as a backup quarterback in the NFL.
And I understand people are competitors, but Breeze probably doesn't have much longer in the NFL. If Bridgewater is like familiar with the system, him and Sean Payton jive, I'd be sticking around in New Orleans. That's a good team. You could take over a good team down there with a good coaching staff. So maybe you could trade a second or third round pick for him, but now we're looking to a whole nother thing there. Now we're trading a second round pick for a guy who's thrown for 118 yards in 4 years. So I don't know. I don't know if it's as easily done as people think.
I think the other thing that needs to be addressed is the franchise potential that was mentioned in that question. I mean, that's kind of as bad of a call as that guy that kept talking about Blake Bortles making Pro Bowl.
Yeah, that was bad.
Anybody believe that Teddy B could be a franchise quarterback?
I mean, before his injury, he looked like it.
Okay, I'm talking about like now.
No.
I don't think so, no.
Yeah, I mean, I don't either. I mean, I think, again, he's a stopgap. And if you're talking picks for him in addition to whatever his money is, no way.
Anything else on Teddy Bridgewater?
No.
Because I would really like to move on to Kyler Murray.
Please.
I've been itching all day.
I'm
to
shocked
talk
that it took this long.
Well, I've been trying to.
Yeah,
I've been
good
trying,
job.
but
No, it's good.
Okay, all right.
You're like a kid on Christmas waiting his turn for his name to be called.
All right, finally. Okay. This question is from Phil Shad, and he's at Phil Shad. And he says, sounds like Kyler Murray is leaning toward football. How does that play into the Jags draft plans as well as the Nick Foles situation?
I think you should take this one.
Thank
Jason.
you.
Yeah, just
all
go.
right. So it's no secret that I've been on the Kyler Murray bandwagon since day one. And you know what, Joey, I'll admit, I'm changing my tune.
Whoa.
And here's why.
Hey, I am listening now.
And here's why.
Man, this is like an M. Night Shyamalan twist here.
Yeah, I'm like...
I think Kyler Murray goes top 3 now. And I don't think the Jags can afford to move up to the top 3. I think he's going to go either first overall or third overall. And to move up there, you're giving up the farm to move up there.
Wait a second. If he goes first overall, who is selecting him first overall?
Probably, I think someone either trades up or the Cardinals straight up take him.
Okay, let's play hypothetical again. If the Cardinals take him at 1, if you don't remember, last year they took a quarterback with their first overall pick, Josh Rosen. What happens then? Do the Jags make a play for him?
Oh, that would be great.
Jags Twitter is going to slaughter me for this because they have already, but I am not a Josh Rosen fan. I'm not. I've seen enough of him. There wasn't a lot of good things coming out about him when he was being drafted. There's a lot of smoke around his character traits and the way he viewed football and approached the game. And after watching him last year, I get the team was bad. I get they had bottom 5 O-line, bottom 5 running game. But it's not like the receivers were terrible. I mean, you had Larry Fitzgerald. They just drafted the dude, can't remember his name, from Texas A&M. They had some good receivers. Christian Kirk.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I've seen enough of him to know I don't want him a 7 overall. I would rather have Haskins. I would rather have Drew Lock than Josh Rosen.
Or Greer, right, Jason?
No.
So I'll kind of meet you in the middle on this one as well, because I went back and I've watched some, clips of Kyler Murray, and I'll even acknowledge his first name as being Kyler at this point.
Thank you.
Okay, first of all, dude does have a cannon. He absolutely has a cannon, and he's probably the fastest guy on the football field 9 out of 10 games, which is kind of crazy.
Because he's a quarterback.
Exactly, and his size is what it is. I mean, he's tiny. That still worries the heck out of me. But from a marketing standpoint, I think Kyler has played this whole thing perfectly. Because, 2-3 weeks ago, everybody's knocking him like, oh, make a decision. Do you want to be a baseball player? Do you want to be a football player? He wasn't coming out with a statement that he was just kind of wishy-washy and looked like he really didn't have a clue what he wanted to do. I think that was all planned because he's timed it really well. At this point, season's over, Super Bowl's over. Now it's all about him. And the second that happens, he comes out with this statement. Once he goes to the combine and runs the 40 and they see his velocity on his passes, I think you're absolutely right that he is shooting to number 1 or number 2 pick overall.
I don't know if I'll go so far as to say number 1 or number 2, but top 10 without a doubt. Listen, he did not make this decision just because he likes football better than baseball. I guarantee you, I don't know if his dad is his management or not, but his people, I'm sure, did some digging and investigating with GMs around the league or whomever, and they got word from someone that, yes, if you are on the board, we will take you with the first overall pick, or not the first, but our first pick in the draft. So, which, even if that was team number 32, that's still an $8 million guarantee financial investment, okay, which is double what he's getting from the A's. So, he's going in the first round. The question is where, and I think as Joey said, the combine happens, as pro days start to happen, teams fall in love with quarterbacks. It happens every single year. And he is just going to continue to move up and to move up and to move up on all the draft boards until he lands somewhere in the top 10. And I think that only benefits the Jags because Haskins becomes more available. And he's my guy. I like Haskins. I like a pocket passer more than a scrambling quarterback because if you look at the league and the teams that go far in the playoffs and that ultimately win a Super Bowl or conference championships, those are pocket passing quarterbacks. And that's why I like Haskins. I'm not saying that Murray can't, but he's not your prototypical. And I want prototypical right now. I'm not saying he's not exciting. And if Haskins were to go first and Murray is on the board at number 7, I will be screaming for them to take Murray. But if I had my choice between the two, I want Haskins. So if this in any way helps the Jags get Haskins, I'm all for it. So time will tell. I think it is going to cause, it's going to be interesting. This is going to be a super ripple effect in the draft, and it's made things a whole lot more interesting. Thank God it's made things interesting because before this news officially broke and he officially declared, to be committed to football, this draft was looking somewhat boring.
Yeah.
Now it's not.
Yeah. I agree. I get all those reasons that you talk about, prototypical quarterbacks. That all makes sense to me. But I think what people are forgetting is Mike Vick was like 6 foot, 200 pounds when he was at the combine. Like, that's not much bigger than Kyler Murray. And if I were to ask anyone, would you take Mike Vick on your team? 10 out of 10 people would say, of course. And so I think people are getting a little too hung up on the size because at the end of the day, if the guy can play football, an inch and a half an inch of height, they're like, oh, he's 5'10 3/4, he's 5'9 3. At the end of the day, is a quarter of an inch going to really matter? At the end of the day, it's not. It's
Honestly,
really not.
His height doesn't bother me as much as the fact that he weighs 170 pounds. The dude's quick. The guy has a quick release. He's got a cannon. You know what happens after you get tagged, drilled over and over again in the NFL? That stuff starts fading. So that's my concern. You're looking for a franchise QB, and he probably could be if he stays healthy. But the chances of him playing for more than 2 or 3 seasons, in my mind, are almost non-existent. I don't see it being possible that he's in the league or a starter. He's just too small.
Anything else on Kyler Murray?
I don't know. I just think you said first or third. Who's third? Raiders?
Yeah.
You think the Raiders would take
No,
him?
I think they'll trade out of their pick.
Then the question becomes who?
Yeah. There's teams like the Redskins, the Dolphins,
Giants could move up.
Giants. The Raiders really could take.
I was going to say
him.
it's possible the Raiders take him. And then you ask, what about Carr? So there's all sorts of things that could happen with this. I just can't wait to see it unfold. Man, I can't wait. I'm so glad he's committed.
Yeah, he really has mixed things up.
Big time.
Because it could be crazy because there are a lot of teams that drafted first round last year that could try to take him.
Mm-hmm.
And if that happens, it could just be this whole domino effect of trades and tweaks, and you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes type of stuff, which I really like. I like all that. That's pretty cool.
All right, well, this next question is kind of fun too. And if you haven't listened to our podcast episode 54, we had Zach Goodall on for an interview, and it was great. Go check it out. He went to the Senior Bowl. We talked to him about the players he liked, players he didn't like. But recently, Zach Goodall had an article that was pretty controversial. And one of our Twitter questions from Mike Wilbraham, and he's at Abe4Lincoln, kind of goes along with it. And he asks, wouldn't it be fun to draft Kyler, use the money to pay Le'Veon Bell, and maybe still get Teddy Bridgewater? Do something a little out of the box instead of the same old, same old. So the question is how do you feel about paying Le'Veon Bell to come here?
Obviously, that would mean that we would trade or do something with Leonard Fournette.
I mean, not necessarily, but you would think.
It's a lot of money tied up into the running back position.
Well, Fournette's still on his rookie deal, so it's not really money yet. You could trade him if you wanted to get value, which they probably would, but it doesn't necessarily mean you would have to.
Listen, I would love if the Jags got Le'Veon Bell. This is the problem I have with that. Tom Coughlin is not going to bring a dude who sat out an entire season for himself and quit on his team into the Jags. That's not the Coughlin way, which is ironic because the guy that they drafted at running back basically did the same thing this year.
It's true.
So, but I just don't, I read that and I thought, that's great in theory. I just can't believe it will ever happen because I just don't see Coughlin rewarding that type of behavior, period.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Just set up some cameras in the locker room and we'll have Big Brother Jaguars edition with those two guys together. I mean, I'd rather have Antonio Brown if we're talking like that kind of trade. I mean, I do not want Le'Veon Bell on the Jags. I don't want I don't want a guy that would sit out a whole year like he did, period. I don't care how good he is.
Wait, I mean, okay. You don't mind Antonio Brown's antics?
At least Brown shows out on the field. He played last year. I mean, he does have some stuff off the field, but not near the same level. And I think we need wide receiver way more than we need running back. I mean, if we're going to take a questionable, character guy at running back, we got Fournette. I mean, he could be close, if not as good as Le'Veon if he plays like he should. I'd much rather us take Brown and fix our wide receiver core. I mean, if we're going to go questionable, why not?
But here's a little wrinkle to the Le'Veon Bell scenario is Le'Veon Bell can kind of satisfy that need at wide receiver as well because he can kind of flex out and play that wide receiver role. So you're kind of addressing a big need in addition to bringing in one of the best players in the NFL. So I'm with James. In theory, it's a great idea. On Madden, it's a great trade if you're playing Madden. But in real life with Coughlin, I just don't see it happening.
Let me ask you all this. Do you think, regardless of where he goes, do you think Le'Veon Bell is going to be the same player after sitting out an entire year, getting a year older? I know he didn't have any carries or get hit in the year. So, I mean, but do you think you can sit out an entire year and come back and be the same guy?
I think he could. He's a freak athlete. And again, he's not your traditional run between the tackles guy. He can do that, but he makes his money on little flares, screens, quick outs, wheels, things like that. I mean, he torched Telvin Smith on that wheel route in that playoff game. That's a grown man wide receiver move he put on Telvin Smith. I mean, that's where he makes his money. Yeah, he plays between the tackles pretty well, but he's not really that type of back, in my opinion.
I'm just curious. Me said a year out. So
did Fournette.
That's true.
I mean, I think if you're dedicated, which he is questionable with him, obviously, but coming into this season, it's going to be another prove-it year for him. So, I think there's no way that he steps up and doesn't do what he has to get back in shape and that sort of thing. So, I mean, barring some injury, I think wherever he goes, he's going to do pretty well. I don't see how he couldn't.
Joey, is it safe to say that you hate guys that quit on their team?
Absolutely. It's the amount of money and the opportunity these guys have for them just to not appreciate it. And that's not appreciating it. That's not appreciating what God gave you, your gifts and the place you are in life right now. And it really bothers me, man. I mean, I'd rather lose football games than have that guy on my team.
I know. I love it.
I'm glad you get a giggle.
I mean, the guy's got to look out for himself, though. Because the teams,
because he was making such bad money, it was.
But that's his value to the workforce. I mean, that's economics. If you're not going to get paid, you hold out. I mean, the team's not going to take care of him when he's done and retired.
But
who's he?
He agreed to that contract.
The team has no loyalty to him. The team has no loyalty to him, and we're asking him to have loyalty to the team.
We're asking him to abide by his contract.
What was the franchise tag? It was like 20-something million, right?
Yeah. 21, I think.
Yeah, but people
It's a lot of cheddar.
hold out all the time. If Jalen Ramsey held out this year until he gave him a new contract, would you hate him?
I could understand that because Jalen's not making the bank that he could be.
I want to make this very clear. I will never hate Jalen Ramsey.
I don't know. I think we're a little too quick to hate on people for doing things like that when they got to look out for themselves.
I think it's
teams aren't looking out for him.
It's a completely different situation. He was already on his second contract. He already agreed and got paid. Ramsey hasn't yet. So, yeah, Ramsey could hold out if he's
I don't know. I think it's a slippery slope where we're kind of judging what his worth is to, maybe he's worth more money.
If I didn't show up for work for a year, I'd have a hard time finding another job somewhere else. That's for sure.
If you knew you didn't show up for a year and you knew a year later you'd get paid more money by another company, you would probably not go to work either. Touche. Gotcha. All right, let's move on to the next question.
Wow, don't even get to think about that. Just because I thought about it, it's touche. Fair enough.
This question is from Lucas, and he's at
Highlight of the Another Jags podcast, all 55 episodes right there.
Yeah, I know. That's how you win an argument. You don't let them respond.
Yeah.
This question is from Lucas, and he's at Lucas067860886. I'm sorry. Lucas 067860888.
Is that a social?
I don't want you to get confused with the other Lucas with the wrong number.
There's a lot of Lucases in this world. They're all on Twitter.
And he says, should we draft an offensive lineman in the first round and get Tyree Jackson in the second?
No.
I'm all for the offensive lineman in the first round, but I'm not a Tyree Jackson fan.
If you're going to draft a guy, okay, you're Greer. Okay, if Greer's gone in the early, let's say we take Jawan Taylor. He's now shooting up the draft boards as the number one offensive lineman all of a sudden out of Florida. You'd be pumped about that, right?
Again, I've gone on record that we should not draft any Florida players ever again.
Well, offensive linemen, they put out good offensive linemen.
Well, I'm sure there'll be something bad with it, but okay.
Okay,
in theory, yes, I'd be okay with that.
Let's say they take Jawan Taylor with the first pick, 7 overall. Let's say all the quarterbacks go. And you're left with the second-tier guys, Tyree Jackson, who's the guy from NC State? The dude from North Dakota State. Would you take Tyree Jackson the second round?
I'd take the guy from North Carolina State. Can't think of his name.
Ryan
right
Finley.
Finley.
Ryan
yes.
Finley's his name.
Yep. I think he's got more potential.
What about Eason Stick, the guy from North Dakota State?
Don't know who that is.
He's getting a lot of hype.
And he's got a really lame name.
North Dakota State.
Yeah, I guess.
And who would go there on purpose?
Carson Wentz, didn't he go there?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they win like the whatever conference they in championship like every year, but it's North Dakota, man.
Well, that's true.
It's cold.
That's where Gus Bradley was at.
Yeah. And that's a bonus.
I think Tyree Jackson's intriguing, but I don't know. The Senior Bowl, I guess he wasn't really playing that well. The Senior Bowl, I guess I'd like to see him at his pro day or the combine, I guess, before I can make a decision on that, or watch film on him, to be honest with you, because I haven't seen any film on him.
If I hear the Jags draft another developmental quarterback, I might lose my mind. You know, is one thing.
He's got a quick release, James.
I can't handle it.
Well, it's just.
There's a difference between guys that need some work going into the NFL, but they did something in college, and guys that have the size and maybe even the arm strength, but do nothing in college. I don't want those guys. So that's a hard pass for me.
He threw for 56% completion percentage.
Pass.
Okay, then
That's just stop. That's all we need.
he had 3,100 yards, 28 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, and his highest completion percentage was 60% over his career.
We had 28 total touchdowns in his career?
No. Last year.
Oh, last year. Okay.
Yeah. But, I mean, the years before, it was like 12-3 and 9-9. So, I mean, nothing like earth-shattering.
Yeah.
He is 6'7", 250, though. That's Cam Newton size. He's Cam Newton size.
Okay.
But
That's the thing that makes scouts take a look at him.
And again,
Kind of going back to your point with Kyler Murray, if you can play, you can play.
Yeah.
And if you can't, you can't. So it goes
Right.
both ways.
Yeah.
If you're big and you can't play, don't drive him just because you're big.
But
I mean,
maybe
that's
he can
my
play,
thing, though.
though.
Is like if you're that prototypical size and you're supposed to be a legit quarterback, why are you playing at North Dakota State in the MAC?
Buffalo.
Or Buffalo, sorry, in the MAC. I mean, are you just dumb as a bag of rocks and that's the only school you could get into? I mean, which that's a concern too in the pros. I mean, you got to be smart to learn the playbooks and read defenses. I mean, why are you there? There's got to be something that caused you to have to be in that situation.
Yeah, but there's quarterbacks that go to small schools all the time that turn out well. Like we just talked about, Carson Wentz went to North Dakota State.
Sure, and how is that the norm or is that the exception?
That's probably 50-50. I mean,
how many small schools are there out there versus big Power 5 conference schools?
Well, now we're getting into.
Well, I mean, but from a percentage standpoint, it wouldn't be 50-50. It'd be like there's 100 quarterbacks available here and 1,000 here. So yeah, I mean, out of that 1,000, probably the same amount are going to be good out of those 100. I mean, it's not apples to apples.
Hey, touche. Next question.
All right, I'll give you that one.
I'll say this: if he's there in the third round or fourth, maybe, but second round, come on.
He may be there in the third or fourth round.
Then that's a different.
I have a feeling he's going to be there.
He could drop.
Yeah, and that's a good add-on because third round, I probably wouldn't have a problem with it.
Right. That's a different story. Not the second round. Especially with we have a high second round pick too. So come on.
We should just like wait till the 7th round to get a quarterback like we did last year. I mean, that went well.
I'd say we just bring Tanner Lee back.
Quick release.
Yeah.
You heard Allen got picked back up by the Chargers?
Yeah.
Kind of cool. Side note.
Hey, after the game he had the other night, what about our local boy? What is his name?
John Walford.
Walford, yeah. Bring him in. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah. Well, what y'all think? Did y'all watch any AAF?
I did not.
I did. I watched the Orlando game.
What'd you think?
Honestly, I mean, it wasn't like a solid, like I'm sitting there on the edge of my seat like I am with the Jags. It was like 45 minutes to an hour of, in and out of the room doing other things, but it was entertaining, man. There were some good hits. There were some good touchdowns. Spurrier obviously tried to prove himself like he always does. I mean, it was awesome, dude. It was great non-NFL filler football.
It looked a lot like the NFL. Like you watch all these other leagues, like the Arena League, you watch CFL, you watch XFL. None of them really look like football. It looked like kind of gimmicky. This looked like football.
No, it really did. And there was a lot of names you're like, oh, I remember that guy. Yeah. Or like, hey, that guy was great in college. I mean,
it wasn't like that guy played on the Jags. You know? Yeah. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I could see it sticking around for a little bit, especially with some of these, if they can get their like payroll up to get some of these like lower level guys. A guy like Rashad Green. You can get like a guy like Rashad Green on a team or something like that, then, you get a little fan base there.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, it maintains. I mean, they basically have set up a minor league for the NFL is what it looks like. And
it'll maintain if the NFL buys it.
And I think they do.
Which is probably what they're hoping for.
I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, it can do nothing but benefit them.
Listen, they got a better rating than the NBA game that was on another network at the exact same time.
Yeah.
That was a regular season, real NBA game.
Well, the one thing I did hear, though, like everybody's pumping the positives, but I guess like the Orlando team and Atlanta are like the two top teams in the entire conference. Like you look, I think Utah is one of the other ones. Like they couldn't even give the attendance. There was like 4,000 people there, and it was like a horrible high school game. So I think we're getting the cream of the crop where we're at, which is fine with me. I mean, whatever.
And it was the first one.
Exactly.
We'll see if people are still watching in 2 and 3 weeks.
But I mean, I think any football is good as long as it's watchable, and it was. So I don't have a problem with it.
Speaking of the AAF, this question is from Michael Harrison, and he's at Mike Tubbs H. And he says, how long until Blake Bortles becomes the starting tight end for the Orlando Apollos?
Tight end? Did you say tight end?
That's what he said.
Oh, that's great.
He also wanted to know our thoughts on Zach Goodall's article. We kind of already talked about that. And shout out to Pigskins and Penalties podcast at Pigskins Penalty, who also asked, when will Bortles be the quarterback for the AAF Apollos?
I would love to see it, man. If he doesn't pick up somewhere next year and maybe falls out of the league in a couple years. I mean, I think somebody's going to take him. I mean, there's just too many teams that need quarterbacks. He'll be a backup
at least,
and he'd be a great backup in a lot of the offenses that are run these days. So I mean, I think he'll get on somewhere. But I mean, if he ends up there, man, I wouldn't have a problem with it. He'd probably be a stud.
Listen, Bortles is going to retire being as an NFL quarterback. I mean, if he can stay in the league 5 more years, that's a 10-year career. 10 years in the NFL. That's plenty of quiche for him to retire on. And he's going to because, he's a good teammate. He's a professional. And he's durable.
Healthy.
Yes, he is in the, I'm not saying he's going to start for another team, but that is like exactly what you want out of a backup quarterback. So he will go somewhere and play, or at least, be on a team for another 5 years. And so, and let me say this about the tight end thing. if Blake Bortles is playing tight end in football, it's for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
That's right.
You know,
That's
there's
right.
nowhere else is he playing tight end except here. And that would be, I think Jaguar fans would lose their mind if that happened because
Can you
no one
imagine
really
that?
wants him to leave.
No,
You know,
absolutely
we
not.
all love him. So
Yeah.
Can
just
you
switch
imagine
position.
that if he just came out in a press conference and said, "All right, I'm reinventing myself. I'm tight end size. Let's do this, Jacksonville."
Yeah, and like says Duval and drops the mic. And just walks.
I would lose my mind. Obviously, that would be amazing.
And honestly, like, I could kind of see it working out. You know, I mean, he's fast. He's got moves in open field.
He knows
I'm
the
sure
he knows
can
the
catch-
offense.
Knows
right?
the offense. All right, I think we found our solution. So
Sorry, O'Shaughnessy.
yeah,
All right. Well, this is the last question about the Jags. This is from Paul Carroll, and he's at Campers2K. Campers with a K. And he says, what is your thoughts on the Jags playing in London every year? And secondly, have any of you been to any of the games in London and your thoughts of how good, bad it was? Asking as a UK Jags fan.
I have no problem with them playing there every year whatsoever. I think it's really cool. I mean, you get the early morning game. That's fun. And I haven't been to England when they played there, but I've been to London plenty of times. And honestly, that city with a football game and the fans, I mean, the soccer games are amazing. So they get that hyped for the football games because they only see a couple of them a year. It'd be super fun, man. You go see that and you hang out in that city. The people are great. Pubs on every corner. I mean, it would be a great experience. I think it'd be a blast.
I got no problem with them playing in London. You know, it's one home game we're not getting, but you know, it's tough to make every home game as it is, especially when they're 3 back-to-back in September like they were this year. So it's great. I love that we're reaching our brand overseas. I love that we have such a listening following over in UK. Like this is awesome.
crazy.
Like,
Do you know Patrick?
Are you a Patrick friends? Because we have a question from Patrick coming up, and he actually won the stupid question challenge of the week this week.
did he again? That's two.
Yeah,
It's like 2 out of 3 weeks. Patrick, what's
Yeah.
going on, buddy?
he's good at it. Any thoughts on London, James? Never been to a game in London?
No, never been to London ever. If I had the money, I would absolutely go check it out. I think it'd be like Joey said, I think it'd be a really fun experience. No problem with them playing one game a year over there. It allows the Jags to be on the national stage, something they struggle with a lot, mainly because they can't win consistently. I think it brings in a revenue stream for the Jaguars and helps us here, and not just with the team, but the city of Jacksonville. So I'm all for it. As long as it's just one a year, or if it was one home, one away, I'd be okay with that even too. I'm not saying that we go that direction. Actually, the narrative coming out of the NFL is that it doesn't look like there's going to be a team there. I mean, Roger Goodell over Super Bowl week basically said that, like, you know, we're not there yet, which if you read between the lines on that sounds like, you know, it's not happening. So
Right.
I think everyone can pump the brakes a little bit about any team going over to London full time. But as far as them going over there once a year, you know, I'm all for it.
And I don't know if y'all heard this past week, like Aaron Rodgers came out and said, I guess Green Bay is the only team that hasn't played in London yet or aren't scheduled to. And he came out and said, like, that's not cool. He's like, we want to go play over there. So I think at this point, they understand that market. It's fun for them. It's something different. I think that it's a good thing. Like,
Is that because the Packers are city owned?
I don't know. You'd think so, since it's like a board decision versus like an NFL decision. That's got to work into it somehow.
I didn't know they were the only team that hasn't. That's crazy that all the other teams have played there. Is that true? Or at least will have played there?
No, that have played there or have been or are scheduled to play
Okay,
there.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say Houston. I think this is going to be their first
Yeah.
time playing there.
All right, well, Patrick Jackson has 2 questions, and I'm not sure which one is the stupid question. But either one, I think one.
We'll decide that.
The first question is concerning quarterback for the Jags. He says,
Tim Tebow?
why not Kaepernick?
Oh, okay. Because he hasn't played in 2 years? Is it 2 years that he's played?
I'll answer
hasn't
that one.
played?
Kaepernick does not want to play quarterback in the NFL anymore. I think that's obvious.
So
I
you
mean,
know?
I do not think he wants to. He's getting paid. He's getting to do what he wants to do as far as his movement goes. He's getting the publicity outside of football. I honestly don't think he wants to play quarterback anymore.
I just don't think you're in touch with social issues, Joey.
What does that have to do with social issues?
You're just so insensitive
Insensitive?
to social issues.
Yeah, and also sensitive.
Right. That's the best answer I can give without being completely insensitive to social issues. So let's move on from there.
All right, the next question from Patrick is, he wants to know, this question is for you, Joey, because he's asking for the resident soccer fan. He says, your thoughts on Miguel Almiron. He just made his debut as Newcastle United's record signing from He wrote Atlanta. I'm guessing he meant Atlanta,
Joey's so into this right now,
but
by the way.
I don't know because I don't know who this guy is.
I've seen the guy. He definitely played for Atlanta. He was part of their championship team in the MLS last year.
Oh yeah, of course.
Right.
You know, whatever. I think anybody who can make it from here to there and get paid is a good thing. But I mean, it loses a lot. It's a lot of pressure. I mean, nobody that's gotten that payday has actually turned out well to this point. I'm not a huge Newcastle fan either, so I mean, I really don't want them to do well. But you kind of got to root for them a little bit now because got somebody from MLS on their squad.
So it's the guy that came up through MLS.
He was through the MLS like farm system. Didn't take offers like early on in his career, like most of them do at like 13, 14 to go over and come up through, you know, a Premier League team. He actually said he wasn't going to go over at all. He was happy in Atlanta. Of course, they're going to say that, but then he signed and went. So we'll see. I mean, he's a completely different level of competition over there. So he's going to have to put his big boy pants on. That's for sure.
20 million euros, the highest fee for an MLS player ever. Wow. Good for him,
It's
man.
like $32 million.
Is that the same as American money? Do soccer players get paid American money?
Depends on where. I have no
Got
idea.
direct deposit.
I think so.
He's not American, so I don't think it
Will
matters.
work.
Yeah,
Jalen Ramsey could play over there.
definitely.
Give him 6 months. He can make any
That's
pro
right.
team in the league.
Even hockey. You put him out wide. You can go on a run. Put one in the back of the
Since
net.
we're talking about Jalen, because there has been a lot of talk about him as well after he caught the touchdown, and
That was nice.
because nobody we really talked
Right.
about that.
He did catch it with his body, though.
And what was that? That wasn't a football game. It was like a
Oh, it's an exhibition,
touch.
I
flag,
think it was a
flag.
celebrity
Two-hand
flag
touch.
game. Yeah.
Yeah.
aggressive flag football. But the question still is interesting. Do you think he could play wide receiver?
in the how it was set up in the Pro Bowl. Yes,
I'm talking about in a
absolutely.
real game,
Yes.
both ways.
He could. I don't. Obviously, he shouldn't. He's too valuable playing corner. But does he have the skill set to? I without a doubt.
Then why is he too valuable not to play both?
I'm just saying, like, if he got hurt, then you've lost the best corner in the league playing out of position, and that would be bad.
And he did catch that ball with his body. It's
I
not
didn't
like
say
he
it-
caught it with his hands.
Hey, he hasn't
That's a
had,
big no-no if you're a wide
he
receiver.
hasn't had 6 months to develop himself at wide receiver yet.
He's what is he? 6'2", 6'3"?
He's a beast.
Yeah.
He's super fast. He's got insanely long arms, and he can jump. I mean, that's like the definition of a wide receiver. He's actually more built as a wide receiver than a corner, at least in terms of the NFL.
Yeah,
how that goes.
Typical, yeah.
He can do whatever he wants.
I just want to see it, like one game. Okay, not make it a thing. One game. You talk all this trash. You call out other quarterbacks. You call out other wide receivers. Go out there and do it,
If
man. That'd be
if it's
awesome.
like, first and goal from the 10 or the 8, somewhere around there where they're just looking to do a jump ball like a fade,
Special packages
I'd
or
put him in.
something.
I think he could do it. Well, I'd be interested to see. I know he can dunk. We saw that video that was all over the internet last year of him doing the reverse jam. So he can dunk, which means he can jump some. I mean, I don't think he has to jump much because his arms are just so
I
long.
mean, how exciting would that be, though? Like, throw him in there at wide receiver on first and, like you said,
It
12?
would be just as exciting as Blake playing tight end.
Man, I think we got a formula, guys.
I know.
Can we patent that, copyright it? How do we get some money off
Yeah.
this?
Hashtag Blake at tight end. Be awesome. Okay, I think that does it for episode 55. Another Jags podcast. It's good to be back.
It is. Feels good.
It's good to be back. We took the combine is in a week and a half, I think,
Man, is that soon?
and that's when we started our podcast. So in a year's time, we took 2 weeks off. So that's not bad.
Pretty impressive.
I think
I can't
so.
believe a year's gone by at this point.
I know.
That like flew.
Well, I mean, how else do you get 5s of 10s of listeners? All the way across the pond too.
Fans.
That's
plural.
right. I'm still hesitant to call them fans. Listeners, yes. I don't know if they're just mocking us as they, But anyway, listen, we're gonna keep them coming. Obviously, a lot to talk about as the off season progresses. We do have the combine coming up, and I'm gonna go ahead and put him on the spot and say that as it happens, Jason is going to be giving us in-depth analysis about the combine because
That's a given.
of the three of us here, he is going to be the one sitting in front of his television watching as much of it as he can.
I'm going to be the only one watching it, let's be honest.
Yeah, I won't be watching it.
If I had the NFL Network, which I don't, I would watch it.
Okay.
But I'm not going to upgrade
It's
my
too
cable
good
for
to
it.
wake up the next day and just go through all the highlights. I mean, you get clip after clip after clip and none of that in between. But yeah, Jason will be eating that up. So
Real quick before we do end, we were talking about the Pro Bowl. Did y'all watch any of the Pro Bowl?
0.
Mm-mm.
I watched it on a commercial. I was watching the golf tournament, and I flipped over on a commercial break, and honestly, I watched about 30 seconds and I don't remember who it was, but a running back got the ball and a guy touched him and they blew the whistle. I was like, I can't watch this anymore.
Wow, they really? Like, they didn't even tackle him to the
Didn't even
ground?
tackle him. Didn't even try to tackle him. They just blew a whistle because the defensive player grabbed him. And that was it. And that's what the players wanted. I'm like, why are they even doing this? And I don't think it's going to be in Orlando anymore. The contract's up, so.
God, I hope not, man. Like, hey, let's reward these like millionaires with a trip to Orlando.
I know. Well, the weather's been terrible all 3 years they've had it there. So I don't know, but God, what a terrible product. Yet I think people still watch it.
I think it's really the only thing the NFL misses on. I mean, they pretty much nail like every other aspect of it. And I don't get it. I mean, they used to have those cool like QB challenges where they like run the gauntlet, throw through the stuff. I mean, that used to be fun to watch.
It's the end of the season. Guys don't want to get hurt. They're already banged up as it is. You know, it's just they should just do away with it. Give players, you know, bonuses for making all pro first, second, and third team or something like that. And I mean, no one would miss it.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things they could do. Play like horse, like basketball, like
Yeah.
I'd much dodgeball. Like, I'd much rather watch that.
I was thinking, like, with NBA, you got the dunk contest and 3-point contest, and then baseball, you got the home run contest. That's like why you watch those events.
Yeah.
They need something like that.
It's terrible. Anyway, that does it for episode 55 in another Jags podcast. We will see you next week. And as always, go Jags.